Hi all, my name is Kayla, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. This has become quickly one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. If you had told me 3 years ago that there was a series that would take the #1 spot in my heart over the Graceling trilogy by Kristen Cashore, I'd have told you you're crazy. But that has quickly become the case. This series has the most lovable characters, the craziest battle scenes, really amazing world building, and overall the author is just a really incredible person. This series is very underrated in my opinion. A lot of people on YouTube who are in like the smaller circles who talk about fantasy a lot often mention the series and how either they haven't read it but they want to, or they've only read the first book. So that it is multi-perspective. So we follow a bunch of characters. I think there's like 7 or 8 perspectives in the first book, but mainly you're following just a couple characters. So there's Corbin, who starts off the series as a young boy. He is in King Brennan's kingdom, and his main goal in life is basically just to be a soldier for Brennan. And the story throughout the series is more of a coming of age one. Like I said, we start out with him as a child, and throughout the series we grow with him. We watch him become a man and make more and more decisions for the people who end up following him. He really does become a leader of men in this series, and he is one of my favorite protagonists in any fantasy series I've ever read. We also follow Nether, who is prince to King Aquilus. I don't know how you say that. And he is very ambitious. Despite this, it seems to Nether like his father is doing everything he can to kind of thwart Nether getting what he wants in life. But as Nether gets older and becomes a man, he gets his own warband. So basically, defending his area of the Banished lands from, giants and stuff like that who are supposedly and vicious and attacking people, and just like the random monsters even that you'll find in the Banished lands, like Drags, which are actually one of the first kind of crazy monsters that you'll see in the series. As Nether's warband gets more successful in their missions, he grows more popular, and we kind of see him go head to head with his father throughout the series. As Aquilus loses his popularity and his son gains more, it kind of creates a conflict between the two of them. And it becomes clear pretty quickly that Nether wants different things than his father. The next character we follow is Veritas, who, when we start the series, was the newest member of Nether's warband, but quickly becomes Nether's second. He is like the sweetest character. He basically is the best swordsman to come out of his homeland, but still feels as though he's living in his brother Creelus's shadow. Despite everything that he's done, it seems like no matter what, his father isn't as proud of him as he is his older brother. And then the last character we follow, at least in the first book, because obviously the cast of characters does expand as the series expands itself, is Evenus. So Evenus kind of starts the story as a villain type character. We do get hints that all the trauma he's gone through and like the sacrifices he's had to make, he's kind of done. So basically a decision that he makes starts back up the ancient war. Banished Lands has a very violent history. It has a prophecy that states there will be 2 champions who rise, the Black Sun and the Bright Star, to fight on behalf of the Catachem and the Ben Elim. This story relies heavily on Christian mythology, like angels and demons. So Catachem, demons, Ben Elim, angels. And throughout this story, you will see the 2 champions who are some of our main characters. I'm not going to reveal which one is which because that is a spoiler. But you see these 2 characters kind of come into their roles as the chosen ones, and one of them kind of accepts his role and is ready to do what he needs to do to take down the other party, whereas the other is more kind of hesitant to take on the role. He doesn't want to be someone who is making decisions for large groups of people. Basically, when the Bright Star and the Black Sun fight, supposedly if the Black Sun comes out on top, the world as they know it will end. And that's kind of the setup for the story. Think about all the things that I truly love about this series. Kind of hard to choose what to talk about first, but I think the shining star of the story is really the character work, so I think that's where I'll start. First thing you should know, because characters are characters, but not every story has animal companions. This story has animal companions like you've never seen. Like, we have the wolf that is Corbin's familiar, Storm. We have his horse, Shield, and we have a talking crow named Craft and another talking crow named Fetch. We also have Budai, which is his dad's dog that follows him around. There are so many animals in this story, and I just love it so much. You become just as invested in the health and wellness of the animals as you do for the characters, because both are equally in danger. Getting invested in any of the characters in John Gwynne's stories is kind of hazardous to your mental health. He has a habit of making you love his characters. When you least expect it, he kills off a character. And it's also not the character you expect to die if you are expecting someone to die. So it's a little bit dangerous to love characters in his series, but you know what? That's what we're here for. We want someone to just destroy us emotionally. Additionally, with the characters, one thing you don't often see in fantasy written by a male author is incredibly well-written women, and John Gwynne is just amazing at writing female characters. Specifically, off the top of my head, Cywin, which is Corwin's sister, and Coraline, who is a female character we meet later in the series, I think in book 2, actually. They are so incredibly strong and well-rounded, and you can tell they're a woman. It's not just they have the personality of a man and they're written into a woman's body. You don't see crap like male characters mentioning the female character's breasts and stuff like that. Like, the men are so respectful of the women, and they recognize that women can be strong too. The story is filled with so much attention to detail. There are things that are planted in the first book, something as simple as the color of a character's eyes, for example, is a plug for a plot twist later in the story. So, like, this is definitely one of those series that you really have to pay attention to everything that the author is telling you, because there is not a single ounce of fat to this story. It may be 700 pages per book, but it's 700 pages of, like, actual important content. You can tell that every single little hint and drop was planned from the beginning. Nothing in this story ever happened because John Gwynne didn't expect it to happen. He planned out that you would know that this character's eyes are this color in book 1. So when you get to book 3 and we're about to get a reveal about who someone is, the color of that person's eyes may be important in telling you what they are, who they are. The stories are filled with so much great culture. So there are a lot of different races, but the giant races and the Serac, which you hear about a little bit in this story, but you don't see until the spinoff. There's so many different countries that have different political leaders that all have to come together to face this big ancient war that is definitely coming to fruition, and the different ways that each country wants to handle how things are going, and the conflict that can come from differing opinions on how things should be handled. Another thing about this series is that each book grows in, like, tension and conflict. So you may start the series a little bit like, meh, okay, this is good, but I don't know how I feel about it just yet. But the second you get into book 2, the buildup is crazy. If you've ever watched Game of Thrones, like some of the villains you'll see in this series, there are certain characters that you don't know how, but somehow they just keep living through the main characters attempting to kill them over and over again. And you just get that mood where you're like watching Cersei in Game of Thrones a la season 7, and you're like, you're not dead yet, what the fuck? Like, can't you die already? We're tired of seeing you, your storyline's over, go away. But, like, at the same time, that adds so much to the story, because while it seems in some scenes that the main character has, like, finally done it and they've defeated the bad guy, like, you know in your brain, like, this guy, this person has made it through the attacks of this character so many times that, like, it's likely they will still survive. So, like, it's really like a will they, won't they kind of scenario, and it always keeps you at the edge of your seat wondering what's going to happen. I mean, there are so many swinging of emotions in this series. Like, in one scene, your heart is breaking because someone has died, and you're watching, you know, their emotions come to life as they're grieving their family member. In other scenes, you're watching or you're reading a battle and you're, you know, flipping the pages a million miles a minute because you need to see what happens. In other scenes, you're laughing out loud because some of the characters are just so funny in the most unexpected moments. I mean, I can't stress enough, the writing in this series is just incredible. It's a sign of a awesome author if they can draw all these emotions out of a reader. One thing that drives me away from a story the most is if I'm not invested in the characters or what's happening. If I don't care what's happening to the characters, like, yeet one of them off a cliff and it's not going to bother me. Like, you really have to, I think the sign of a great story is great character work, and he really, really does that. I really don't know what else to say about this series other than read it. Just read it. Just do it. It's so underhyped, and everyone I've ever met who's read this series loves it. Additionally, if you're going to read it, find someone to buddy read it with, because that was how I read the series the first time, and the experience of being able to, like, theorize what's going to happen with someone else is awesome. A lot of the time you're wrong, or some of the time you're right. You don't know, and hearing other people's theories too, like stuff you may not have even thought about, which is what happened to me. Like, my buddy read partner predicted some things that I didn't even think were, like, possible to happen in the series. Like, yeah, I don't even know what else to say. If you're not impressed by book one, keep going. That is one thing I will say. I have heard some complaints by some YouTubers that the first book was a little slow for them. But like I said, each book builds with the amount of action and tension in the story, and I really think it's important to keep going, at least till book two. If you don't like book two, fine, quit. But at least read book two as well before you decide that the series isn't for you. One thing I will say is that I really appreciate about this author, he is so active with his readers and the Banished Lands community. It's super great. On Instagram, if you post about his books, he'll, you know, put it in his story. If you message him on Goodreads, of all places where most authors aren't really active, he'll respond to your messages. There is a Goodreads group that's the Banished Lands group that literally just talks about all the different elements in all his stories. You can take little quizzes and do polls and stuff like that. All of his sons are also really active on there. There's just so much love to be had for this series. I really just wanted to get the word out there, like, you guys need to read this. And as someone who has also read the spin-off series, like, you will not be disappointed. The end of this series, I will say, is a little bit ambiguous because it leaves a good amount open for, like, the future for what happens in the spin-off series. So yeah, I mean, pick up the series. If you like it, cool. If you don't, well, I tried. Hey all, Editing Kayla here, just popping in to say that I will be rereading this entire series in the Tome Topple round in November. If you'd like to join me, I will list down below, like, all of my handles and stuff, and I'll try and set something up maybe on Discord so we can all chat out the series together. Let me know down below if that's something that you're interested in, but I will be rereading this series either way. Thanks.